Are you struggling for ideas for your solos and fills? Today I'm going to show you why you don't need to look any farther than the chord shapes that you're already playing for some great sounding melodies. So stay tuned. Hello and welcome, friends, to episode 149 of the Play Guitar Podcast. I'm Lee, and this is the podcast that's determined to make you a better guitar player. No matter if you're just starting out or you've been playing for years, this is the show that will help you become the guitarist that you always wanted to be. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe to the podcast and check out the description for all of the links from the show. Okay, this is a fun one, right? How do you approach your chords and scales? If you're like most of us, you start out separating the two. Chords are chords, they're over here, and scales are scales, and they're over there. And even as you progress with the guitar, you realize that chords come from scales because those are the strong notes in your scales. It's still very hard to break the habit. You see it when a player jumps from his chord that he's playing, and then when he goes to play a fill, he jumps to a whole other part of the guitar, plays it, and then struggles to get back to the chords he was playing in time. It's like chord playing and scale playing are from two different parts of your brain. And when you have to switch in the middle of a song, it takes a little while to change gears. And that's why when you see players like Hendrix, and he seamlessly moves from chords to single note lines and then back to chords again. He also incorporates, chord tones in the line. It has that wow factor. It sounds really impressive. So let's start to think like this and work on relating our scale patterns and our chord shapes. Make sure you hang out to the end. I'll give you 3 tips to help you get up and running with playing licks around chord shapes. Okay, let's get started. Number 1, what do you got to do? The first step to playing this way is to know how the chord shapes and scales relate to each other. And you'd think that'd be easy. Say you're playing a G chord, you would find the G major scale that sits in the same position, right? Those would be the two that relate together. Sounds pretty reasonable. The problem is that the G chord doesn't always play the main role. If you're in a key of G, this works well, but what if you were playing a song that wasn't in G, that was in, say, the key of C, and you needed to play a quick lick right there by your G chord? You wouldn't want to play that G major scale. There's an F sharp in that scale, would sound out of place playing in the key of C. So we got to know the function of the chord. In this example, that G was the 5 chord in the key of C. And that's very important. So in one instance, in the key of G, a G chord with the G major scale works. But in the key of C, a G chord with the C scale works. It's not always the same scale for a chord. So why do I bring this up right off the bat? It's because it's a problem that we've had to deal with some of my students, the ones who got started with the cage system and got confused which tends to happen with the cage system after a while. It tends to give the impression that a chord shape is always related to that one pattern. That just isn't the case when you play those major scales in different circumstances like the one we just talked about. Things get sour sounding very quickly. The real first step to getting good at this is working on your diatonic arpeggios. I had several episodes that go into diatonic chords and arpeggios, and in a nutshell, they're the chord notes that are taken from each degree of the scale. It's how we get our chords that match each other and how we know what their function is. If you add to your scale pattern practice a little arpeggio work from each degree of the scale, take whatever note you want from the scale, play that one, then skip one and skip another one. Get your arpeggio. You'll start to see something very interesting on your fretboard. These arpeggio shapes, they begin to look familiar. And you can go up the scale and come back the arpeggio, or up the arpeggio and back the scale. this is where these two sides of our thinking, the two worlds, chords and scales, they start to come together. And the more you do this, the more you'll be able to see your chord shapes right there in your patterns. Okay, let's bust that way of thinking right now. We're going to start building some licks around our common chord shapes. You can start your lines right where your fingers already are, or maybe even cooler to you, you can throw some cool chords into those solos too. I'm going to demonstrate this in 3 different ways. All of them are pretty common. Common places you would play some licks around your rhythm. So let's start with the most basic, a C major chord. And this is a C major chord when you're playing in C major. Remember, we talked about that. It's important to know how that chord functions. So this is the 1 chord. So what are the steps? First, you find your chord shape. I'm just playing the basic old open position C major chord, right? Now you want to find your scale range that falls on that chord shape. So I'm going to start. I'm going to limit it to 1 octave. Now that's the full major scale. I could do major pentatonic. But those are the notes that are right under my fingers. This is all played in open position C major, starting on the A string, ending on the B string on those C's there. And I'm not playing the outside E strings, just the inside 4 strings. So we've got our chord shape. We found our scale range that falls on that chord shape. I'm also going to figure out where are my arpeggio notes in that range. In this one, they're exactly the same notes that are in the chord. Easy stuff. So I'm going to take that C chord and I'm going to start and end a lick from my fretted chord notes. So let's see here. Those are my 2 C's. So say the song was... I'm just playing those chord shapes right there. It makes it really easy to go in and out. How about a little major pentatonic? Just kind of fooling around with those notes, making little 1 measure, 2 measure phrases up in between some chord strums there. Easy stuff on that one. So let's take it a couple steps farther. So let's go on to a minor chord. Okay, how about an A minor? Well, we all know it's on the 5th fret. It looks like an E minor shape bar chord right there. So this A minor bar chord at the 5th fret, we're not going to have this play in the key of A minor. We're going to have this be the 2 chord in a chord progression. So this would be the 2 chord, and we're going to go to a 5 chord, which would be a D, and finish it up on a 1 chord, which would be a G. So we have A minor, to D, to G. Now I'm going to play a lick just on the A minor. Here comes A minor again. So what did I do? I didn't play the A minor scale. Like we said, this is the 2 chord in the key of what? G. That was our ending chord or landing chord. So I'm actually using a G major scale, pattern 3, that starts off at the 5th fret and sits right underneath my chords. And one of the neat sounds of this G major is that F sharp. It gives a certain sound to this that's not the regular natural minor over A. It gives a Dorian sound. So I've got the G major scale, which I picked because this is it functions as a 2 chord in the key of G. I'm playing, accenting those notes, the F sharp in the G major scale, that would make a Dorian, a temporary Dorian sound just over this chord. And it's all a half step to a whole step away from the chord tones right there. Really easy to do. It just takes a little bit of thought beforehand to figure out what scale you need and what scale sits right under your fingers. So you don't have to go to Old Faithful for a Dorian sound, which may, your licks you play there may be up at the 12th fret. You never know. Okay, so let's try the last one. Just one more here. And this one's super common. This is the E major. It looks like a G chord. If you're doing like a caged thing, it looks like the G chord. It's up with a bar at the 9th fret, and then your tonic note, your root note for this chord would be the 12th fret on the low E string. Right? You hear this all the time in like Hendrix or Pearl Jam, Robin Trower, these kind of things. A lot of double stops here. So when you're playing this chord, and it's really neat because you can play your open E string. Here they are. Here's the notes to play for the chord. Open E, 11th fret on the A, 9th fret on the D, 9th fret on the G, 9th fret on the B. And you could put a 12th fret on the high E if you wanted to as well to finish that out. So it's a G shape. It's in a lot of rock, kind of major rock, Hendrixy kind of sounds. So what I'm going to do is what's common is to play the E major pentatonic scale pattern that fits perfectly with this chord shape. And it fits perfectly because the back of that major pentatonic pattern 1, they're notes all along the same fret. You could bar them kind of like we're barring for this chord right here. So here's my chord, here's my scale. So we had a song that's in E to B to A, back to E. And why this one's really neat is because you can hammer on to the front notes of the major pentatonic right there. So 9 to 11 on the D string, 9 to 11 on the G string, 9 to 12 on the B string, 9 to 12 on the high E string. And you could actually do that on low A, 9 to 11 and 12 on the low string. So all of those you can bar with your first finger and add those forward notes right there. So here's my chord progression. E. Very Hendrix theme. So I didn't have to jump around searching for these scale patterns. It was all under my fingers right there by the chord shape. You could also do the full major scale. And there's only one note you have to reach back for on the 8th fret on the G string to get that. Super simple, sounds cool, and very common in a lot of slow rock songs. Okay, here's the bonus I told you about before. These are 3 things that you can start doing right now that will get you up and running quickly playing guitar licks around your chord shapes. First thing, practice all 5 of your scale patterns and limit them to an octave of the chord in that shape. I like to use the key of C to demonstrate things. So let's see here in pattern 5, we have a C C bar chord that looks like an A shape. It's at the 3rd fret. And what we could do is play that 1 octave to the chord. So maybe play the chord, do the scale, and play the chord again. Then move up to the next pattern. So this would be pattern 1. Our C chord looks like a G, and this is at the 5th fret, and we could do the same octave. So far we have 3rd fret, 5th fret. Now our next pattern is pattern 2, C major pattern 2, and the bar chord at the 8th fret is the E shape. Okay, and now our next one we have our D shape. That's up. First finger is on the D string at the 10th fret. And we have pattern 3. And then finally we end it up here with our C shape up all the way up at the 12th fret. So we go through all of them. And then this one. You have to really think to go through those quickly like that. But that's getting those chords and those scale patterns down together. It's a good little, minute or 2 of your practice to do that, and it's really beneficial stuff. Another thing that you could do is you can map out some of your signature licks and play them over different voicings of the chords. So, haven't done any minor pentatonic yet. Let's try a little bluesy thing out. So let's see here. Let's take a lick that let's say you play the C7 chord. This is kind of the bar C7 at the 3rd fret. And let's say every time you play this chord, you like to play this lick. Okay, it's just one you naturally play there. You like that. I'm just picking an easy one. Okay, let's try and voice the C7th chord across the neck of the guitar and play that same lick in the different patterns that relate to those chords. So this is at the 3rd fret. Now I'm going to do a C7 at the 5th fret. Okay, I was using pattern 4 before. This one is in pattern 5. Same notes, but just in pattern 5. And they sit over this E7 chord at the 5th fret. Let's go to the 8th fret. This is our standard E7 looking C7 chord at the 8th fret. And we're using pattern 1. Okay. Now for pattern 2, we've got our C7. This is up at the 10th fret. It looks like a D7, open D7th chord up on the high strings. And we're using pattern 2. Same notes, but just across different strings, higher up on the guitar. And then let's finish up. Let's do a C7th up here. This is at the 13th fret. And we're going to have pattern 3 to finish it off. And the last exercise you could do to help you get up and running quickly with doing this is doing your scale arp chords. So in each position, I'm still going to stay in the key of C. Here, down at the 3rd fret, we're going to do pattern 5. We'll do the scale all the way up and back. C major arp. Chord. We'll go to the 5th fret. We'll do pattern 1. Arpeggio. Chord. Okay, so we're marrying all these things together. Let's go to pattern 2 up to the 8th fret. Arpeggio. Chord. Pattern 3. Arpeggio. Chord. And then pattern 4 up at the 12th fret. Arpeggio. just running those, just getting time with the chord and the scale and the arpeggios together. That way, when you're in the middle of a song and you don't have time to think, but you know you want to have a really nice lick or really nice line right on one chord, you have everything that you need right under your fingertips. So take all three of these things, or maybe just one at a time, add them to your practice schedule. It'll be easy stuff to do, and you get big results for that. And you'll be able to visualize your scale patterns and your chords, and you can go seamlessly in and out of them with no problem at all. And while we've been talking about guitar solos, just remember, if you're struggling with your guitar solos, you need to have a solid understanding of blues lead guitar to really get those under your belt. And I've got a free course for you. It's a 6-part course that strengthens your foundations with lead guitar, and it's called Get Your Blues Solos Under Control. And you can get that for free over at playguitaracademy.com/free blues lesson. All right, that's a wrap. Thank you for joining me today for the Play Guitar Podcast. Make sure to hit the button below to subscribe to the show. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit the notification bell. You can get all my content as soon as it comes out. For more episodes, lessons, and ways to get involved with the community, visit playguitaracademy.com. Thanks again, and I'll see you on the next episode.